Alright, so when we last left off, we listened to Horace Butler on the Occult Science Radio. Now we're going to listen to him on KTL. KTL Radio presents Horace Butler, When Rocks Cry Out. We left off with, biblically, we start with Genesis 9, and it talks about the curse that is given to the Canaanites, to the child Cain, that is from Ham, not from Adam, from Ham. And it led us to Ephesians, where chapter 2:13. Now in Christ Jesus, ye who sometimes were far off, these are the Gentiles, they were far off, are made nigh, they are made close by the blood of Christ. For he is their peace, he is our peace, who has made both one. So that is two civilizations dwelling together, forced into being one by this blood of Christ. For he is their peace, who have made both one, and have broken down the middle wall of partition between us, which is water. It also stated at chapter 3 and verse 6, and that the Gentiles should be fellow heirs. Heirs. You understand that? To share within, what do you say, inheritance. Now isn't that interesting? They kill our fathers, they kill our mothers, so that we can't receive inheritance. But here Paul's preaching to these goddamn warriors that they're gonna come and share our fucking inheritance. You think this has to do with holiness? It has to do with war. Their God is the God of war and commerce. They came here and stole every fucking thing and set up a goddamn market for everything. Then you say, on Sunday, I'm gonna go to church. So I asked God. I said, God, give me a hand. I'm a little confused. Like, I understand the truth, but I don't understand the truth, and I'd like to see the truth. So, do you hear that? The radio, the computer just starts on itself, right? And so he sends me to this. Well, I'm sitting there with a Bible in my hand, and I'm like, okay, tell me what to read, Lord. And I don't hear anything. So I'm like, okay, fine, I'm just going to start reading Jeremiah, because, you know, and this is what came up. For lo, Jeremiah chapter 1. And I didn't even have to go that far for the answer I was looking for. For lo, I will call all the families of the kingdoms of the north, saith the Lord. And they shall come, and they shall set everyone his throne at the entering of the gates of Jerusalem, and against all the walls thereof around it. Didn't the walls of Jerusalem fall? That was the destruction of the city. Then that led to the destruction of people. This is what the 10 kings are, that it's explained in Daniel. These 10 kings that have stolen the land of Europe and call themselves European kings. We already see France. France's own white court said that white France can't call themselves the fucking French, because they're not Aboriginal. They're from some other place that they don't want to tell you. And we already saw Frank, whatever his name is, Frank whatever, discussed that they were from the island of Mu. Genesis chapter 10 says, these are the Gentiles of Japhet that are from the isles of the sea. Genesis 9 says, Japhet, who dwells in the isles of the sea, will dwell in the tent of Shem. Not in the tent of Africa, not in the tent of Ham, in the tent of Shem. So we always must remember our forefather, no matter how many Africans get on here and say African Hebrews and African this and African that. Two males do not put their seed into one egg. That is genetically impossible in the natural way. You have to have science to be able to make that abomination that they keep saying the Hebrews are. Just because you're born on a soil doesn't mean you're attached to that soil. Hence, the Lord lifted these people out of what we call Egypt and brought them to the Americas.
Thebes.
What you call Thebes.
Under the eventual name of Jerusalem, because those ancient Africans had first built that city in honor of Heru, Amin's son, not Osiris's son, Amin's son, Heru. And we called it after Heru. And we flipped that H and J one time to give you from Heru to Jerud in the district of Salim. No, you're in Jerusalem, just the way some of the ancient writings still show that name. Mm-hmm. So you have Jerusalem, Thebes, sitting in South America. And you have Memphis sitting where Mexico City is sitting now. Now, you have to understand now. Now, when you have your Crusades, you are coming into the Americas. You already know Jerusalem is in South America because you've been here before. Egypt had been here. Europe had been here. Rome had been here. Persia had been here. Babylon had been here. Everybody knew about the Americans. When they came in with the Crusades, they went to capture the ancient African city of Jerusalem in South America. But every time they do it, now they had good success at first crusade because they caught the brothers squabbling like they're still squabbling among each other over the different sects and different beliefs. And when they catch you divided like that, they just whip all of you. So they came in and they were able to capture this ancient African great city sitting in South America called Jerusalem because they caught the brothers squabbling. Now, when they tried it again, after they had been run out of the Americas, they came in again, and now they're trying to do it, and they find out the brothers have a strategy. Now they're working together. When they tried to besiege that fortress city of Jerusalem in South America in that high mountain, now the brothers from Mexico comes up behind them, these armies, and sandwiches them in. And now they get defeated, and they keep trying that. They keep saying, you know what, we finally run out of luck on capturing Jerusalem. It wasn't that you're running out of luck. The brothers had started working together, and now there's a strategy. So when in the 1500s they say, you know what, I think what we need to do to be able to take these African cities and lands and all the riches and the drugs and the cocaine and everything else that's in the Americas to start making that money again. To get that land, I think we need to go and whoop the army in Memphis first and Mexico first. So when we go down and attack Jerusalem this time, we won't get sandwiched in. So in this invasion in the 1500s, here the ships come, and they come into Mexico, and you'll see all the books, and they say the invasion and conquest of Mexico and Peru. But now something should have clicked in your brain right then. When you see Mexico, you don't see Peru right next door. Peru is not in Texas. It's hidden. Is hidden on the far side of South America, on the Pacific side. You can't even reach it coming through the Caribbean, not in your ships. So here you go. How do you know where Peru is, and you just found Mexico? They know exactly where Jerusalem was. But they were going to knock out the armies at Mexico and then take the armies down to South America and then conquer Jerusalem. But now, they have to hide this now. Because if you are the church and you're saying you have a right to come in and conquer and destroy and mutilate and slaughter these people in the Americas, and have the church's blessing out of Italy, the Rome there, you better have some kind of good justification if you're trying to say that you're humane. So they come in and they say, well, we're going to introduce them to the religion of Christianity. And so, it's going to give them a benefit. So we can do this because we...
So, again, this is Dum Diversus, 1452. And what Pope Nicholas is doing is he's truly giving them the permission to attack Jerusalem. And see, we're under the impression that Jerusalem wasn't reconstructed. When you scroll down to the contents, we grant you, the kings of Spain and Portugal, by these documents. You're able to hold these papers up to these Africans and these Shemites. But these documents are apostolic authority. Full and free permission to invade, search out, capture. To invade. It's a military campaign. To search out, that's hunting. To capture, that's kidnapping. To subjugate. We're still subjugated today. Any Saracens, Moors, Negroes, and pagans, any Caucasus or Canaanite tribe there, and any other unbeliever that didn't fall under what was said prior. And so you got to believe in Christ, and if you don't believe in Christ, you're obviously a fucking enemy of Christ. And enemies of Christ, wherever they may be, as well as their kingdoms, their duchies, their counties, their principalities, whichever entity rules over them. Do I need, I was just in Ephesians, right? Right? Everybody likes the New Testament because it's new. People like new things because it's all fresh and put in a nice container. Ephesians 6 and 12. John freaking Kennedy. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. Take down their fucking principality and other property. Oh, what do you mean other property? Like gold and silver? Of course, take that gold and silver. Bring me their gold. And reduce their persons into perpetual servitude so they can't build an army. Yes, indeed, yes. This is what has to be done to colonize a peoples. You don't bring a people groups with you when you fucking colonize something. What's your address? Tell me your address, and I'll colonize your house and demonstrate it. I'll kick in your door. I'll murder you for inviting me there, and I'm going to do things with your wife and family. I'm going to teach your kids that I'm their God. I'm going to make them watch your wife bow to me. Before I kill you, I'm going to tie you to a pole outside and beat you. But right when I'm ready to kill you, I'm going to invite a bunch of people that look like me over and hang you to a tree and burn you and take pictures of it. Wait, hold on. I don't want you to think I'm just being insane. I am sure everybody's... I shall use our government's secret weapon, Google. There we go. Now does the picture become more clear? For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of the world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Oh wait, look, high places has a number. Oh, or heavenly places, right? Wicked spirits, flesh and blood. No. Alright, see? So this is what it truly has to do with. It has to do with conquering a people and subjugating them. Constantly making money off of them. And what's done with that money? It's sent back to the 10 kings that came over in the first place. So look, the Lord says, hey, let me show you a vision, Jeremiah, to test to make sure you can see the vision. So he shows Jeremiah the vision. Then he says, I'm going to show you another vision. I'm going to test that Jeremiah sees the second vision. Listen to this. And the word of the Lord came unto me a second time, saying, what seest thou? And I said, I see a seeing pot. What's a seeing pot? What's a seeing pot? It's a cauldron. It's like watching a TV in the past. No liquid crystal LCD. But you got a seeing pot, a cauldron. This is liquid crystal. See, I touch it and it goes. Alright, so he says, Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 13, I see a seeing pot, and the face thereof is toward the north. This is colonization. When I first read this, I wrote it into my Bible. Then the Lord said unto me, out of the north an evil shall break forth. Aren't the wicked things chained up? And this is when the wicked things that are chained up breaks forth. The wicked things, an evil shall break forth upon all the inhabitants of the land. The whole earth is the land. For lo, I will call all the families of the kingdoms. Right? So this is where the wickedness starts. He calls the families of the kingdoms of the north, saith the Lord, and they shall come. So they're going to gather together in a military campaign, and they shall come, and they shall set everyone his throne. Each one will say, I want my turn. And each one will set his throne. His throne. He's going to send out his king, or his son, or himself, at the entering of the gates of Jerusalem, so we can all see their faces, because Jerusalem's got a wall. If they just stand outside the wall in different spots, we can't see them. They all peeked in to say, I'm about to rape you. Everyone set his throne at the entering of the gates of Jerusalem, and against all the walls thereof round about, and against the cities. What do you think happened next? Verse 16, and I will utter my judgments against them, touching all their wickedness, who have forsaken me, and who have burned incense to other gods. This is you, Judah. They say, oh, I'm in America, I'm Judah. You worshipped other gods, so he brought these people against you. This is what happened.
Eventually, the whole thing is, we're going to save them. We're going to save their souls. And they certainly can't tell you that they came in and destroyed Jerusalem. But the Vatican had an interest. Because when the church was developing in the Christian world, there were 12 churches. 11 of them are in the Americas, and one alone is there in Italy. But they wanted to be the head, and the 11 churches in the Americas would never allow it and would always vote as a bloc against it. Now, if you can wipe out the 11, you can become the head. So they had a vested interest in the destruction of the churches and the cities in the Americas. And Spain, of course, wanted the riches and the land. And so you knock out the armies at Mexico, you go down to Peru, and you knock out Jerusalem and wipe that city clean and rob it blind. But now you have to hide the histories so you won't be accused of destroying Jerusalem. And that's what was done. They knew that these were not Aztecs.
Do you understand what's going on? For them to come over here and set up camp and preach Christ, they had to destroy the temple. And then they changed history to hide the act. How many miles a library is in the Vatican? Because they're stealing our books. They took everything worth anything, especially written. They took them and put them in a vault. These niggas are on the other side of the world enslaved. They'll never get in this vault.
Aztec means these people were worshiping the ancient religion of Sutek that some also believe is...
Let me read this to you again. All these niggas got their own opinion about what God is. And it says, I will utter my judgment against them, touching all their wickedness, who have forsaken me and have burned incense to other gods and worshiped the works of their own hands. That's you, Israelite. That's you, Hamite. That's each of you that sat there and said, I'm going to control Jerusalem. We're going to pray to Ammon. We're going to pray to this one. We're going to pray to Horus. We're going to pray to this. We're going to pray to that. Each of you fucking morons enslaved us. Now that your ancestor's dead for the action of controlling us, and we don't have the records of who controlled us at the time, you'll just not be accounted for until Judgment Day. You put us in this predicament. As well, I as well probably did. And now all this fucking argument, we can't even come together on the Creator. But it's all by design, by the Creator. He doesn't want us all. You guys must snap out of it. You know what's coming. There's a storm coming.
Set, ancient Set. And Set. If you go deeper, you'll find that this Set is also Cain in the ancient biblical writings called Genesis. Cain, that they spell as C-A-I-N, but in the other African records that we now call Egypt, he's called K-H-O-N, Khan, Su, who slays his brother Osiris, who is the biblical Abel. That's why in the biblical writings, these African writings that they keep trying to give to somebody else to say that they're theirs, in these African writings, you find two worships going on, more than that, but two major ones. In South America, Amen has become the church of power. In Central America, where Heru was given the rule of Lower Egypt, it's Heru and Isis and Osiris, who was Abel, who was then called Baal and El. So you have El in Central America, you have Amen in South America, and when the Persians and the Babylonians came over and whooped the brothers in Central America, and those African cities fell, and some who survived and escaped that slavery went into South America and joined that group. They brought their books, combined them, and in those writings now we have two names for the ancient deity of Amen. We have Amen and Yah and Yahweh and all the other names, and we also see it being called El, because they were worshiping Osiris, El, as Baal, as Cain, as Khan in the north. That's not the same spirit. It's two different ancestral spirits that they're worshiping. Now, I know my Christian brothers and sisters probably don't want to hear that part of it. That when they say Amen at the end of the prayers, it's actually The man who founded Egypt really founded it. It was existing some, but he really turned it into empire. Amen. Amun. Aman. Amen. And so at the end of the prayers in the Old Testament, it's Amen. Christ, when this African came, when this brother came, this divine brother came with this knowledge that he had and started saying, look, we've got a problem. I know it's going to get me killed to tell you, but I'm going to tell you that the worship you're worshiping is wrong. You do not have to kill your firstborn male children to please God. God never required. The man who required it was Ammon when he waged the war against Mexico, against Atlantis, against Mexico. Let me try it again. Against Atlantis, against the Atlanteans at Memphis in Mexico. And he sent Horace's mother Bast to lead that charge. And the slaughter happened. And at the end of it, there was an agreement for sending him such bad tributes, such fat and bones instead of the meat, and such poor selection of crops as his tribute for saving you from the flood that had happened at Memphis that had devastated that land in Mexico. Then he says, okay, well, let me see what I can do to get this corrected. And when that war happened and that slaughter happened, they sued for peace. And the agreement was, okay, from now on, to make you remember to send me your best fruit, your first fruit. Then this temple is going to be built. You're going to give your firstborn male offspring of stock and human. And so later, with that same worship still going on 21,000, 22,000 years later, then now even before then, 1900 BC, you have the Exodus, the civil war of the Africans, and they're saying, look, we're taking South America away from the other Africans that were called Egypt. But look, this law here is too hard, giving up our first male born. And says, okay, well, it is kind of hard. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to let you redeem them. We're going to let you buy it back. And so here you go. Now you're able to give money, and if you're a farmer, your farm goods, or if you are a herder, you can bring your cattle and your others and redeem back your obligation of giving your firstborn male child. And so here's this requirement put on you. And when this African, this brother called Christ came and said, look, that's enough of this. You're wrong. The church is not going to tell you you're wrong. But Ammon is not God. God is love. It's a spirit. It's not this man's spirit. And so you cannot worship both God and Ammon. And can't leave that in there. Put an M on the front of it and says you can't worship God and Mammon, Richard.
All right, so from this point you can see that there's two Christs. There's the European Christ that speaks both ways. That he is God, yet you cannot see God unless you go through him. Yet there's this other Christ that comes from either Ham or Shem that preached a different tune. I'll back that up just a little bit, not too far.
But same worship still going on 21,000, 22,000 years later. Then now even before then, 1900 BC, you have the Exodus, the civil war of the Africans, and they're saying, look, we're taking South America away from the other Africans that were called Egypt. But look, this law here is too hard, giving up our first male born. And says, oh,
now pay attention, he's combining the time of the Exodus and he's combining the time of when he calls Christ. this could also be Joseph, because you can hear the European Christians say that their Christ is modeled off of X, 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 Y, and Z characters, and Joseph is one of those. How his brothers rejected him, and then he fed he fed all of Egypt during the famine.
Okay, well, it is kind of hard. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to let you redeem them. We're going to let you buy it back. And so here you go. Now you're able to give money, and if you're a farmer, your farm goods.
So now we have the pyramids being kept at a particular temperature, and they do these tests in the pyramid. They take different items in, fruits and vegetables, to see how long it takes these fruits and vegetables to mummify. Now, when they mummify, you add them with water later, and they regain their freshness. This is a way of preserving food. Everybody says the pyramids are for dead bodies and this and that. Well, wickedly. Yeah, the pyramid's a refrigerator out in the desert, basically. It mummifies things. It preserves things. Once you start taking people in that are dead, then they're in there for a period of time, and then they're preserved. After that, it's useless. That time, after the time period, the body needs to be in there. It's useless. The science has actually proven it, and they want to hide this information. This very well says to me it's the story of Joseph being called Christ, because Christos is a Greek word, and Horace Butler is one of those people that preach that the Greeks were Africans. Like I showed you in yesterday's video, you can type in Greeks were Africans and you can see there's plenty of information on it. What we see today in the books, the history books, are controlled by Europeans that want us to perceive an image that they've ruled throughout history. This is why in the Bible there's a scripture that says, our fathers have inherited lies.
So if you are a herder, you can bring your cattle and your others and redeem back your obligation of giving your firstborn male child. And so here's this.
So this is how it talks about in the book taken out of the Bible. I think it's the book of Jashir. How they started trading their land when the plague hit, when the famine hit. So first they start storing up the food centers based upon no more Holocaust. No more sacrifices to Moloch. I don't care if Horace Butler says it's Amun. This Bible says that's Moloch's ritual. So Amun was the god of the world, preaching that he was the creator. This is why in the book of Daniel he starts saying Salah. When you look at Salah in the names of the children that are born in the beginning, it says Genesis 10, Salah is the child, I believe he's Eber's father. Excuse me. And Arphaxad begot Salah, and Salah begot Eber. Salah is Eber's father. When you go to, I'm just going to randomly go into Psalms. Well, I'm going to attempt to, okay. Well, I usually see it very fast. One second. Of course, the second I turn it off, the second I find it. Here's one from the band. Psalms 20 through 24. 20, I'm sure there's more times it's come up. 24 and 10. Who is this King of glory? The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory. Selah. Alright, so let's listen to a little bit more of this and then we're wrapping up.
this requirement put on you. And when this African, this brother called Christ came and said, look, that's enough of this. You're wrong. The church is not going to tell you you're wrong. But Amun is not God. God is love. It's a spirit. It's not this man's spirit. And so you cannot worship both God and Amun. And can't leave that in there. Put an M on the front of it and says you can't worship God and Mammon, riches. No, you gotta open your eyes so you can understand.
Now, those have been watching for a while. When I show you Monobaal Zeus and his parables that are written into the Bible, them that say they are Jews to Ashkenazi, put him in the Jewish encyclopedia. All right? He gave away his riches to replace the gold that was taken from the temple by the Romans. Monobaal Zeus has parables as my father stored riches above ground. My father stored riches below ground, meaning in safes and vaults. I'm storing riches in heaven. Okay? Now you're going to hear parables from this African Christ, who I believe is Joseph, that revolves around the food plague. Stop killing your kids. Bring your food in as a dowry instead. You know, when you marry a woman, you're supposed to give money to the father because you're taking hands away from his family that could help build his family. So you pay a dowry. So instead of killing your firstborn, you pay a dowry for the sacrifice that's not going to take place anymore. That dowry now, it seems to be food. So now you need a storage place for food, right? So now you see how this goes into the story of Joseph? But somebody that's really Afrocentric is not going to look at it this way. He'll bring up Hebrews and mention that they're African, not focus that they're from the seed of Shem.
And what happened. And so here's the history that's unfolding in the Americas. And then when...
And if some fool would dare to say Shem doesn't exist, then why do we have the people of Japhet and the people of Ham living on the land of Shem? Kaboom.
These invasions happen in the 1500s AD, and these ships come in and they whoop these African cities on the place that had been ancient Memphis, that had been Enoch's African city. All Genesis is African, all Deuteronomy is African, all Old Testament is African. These are African histories. It wasn't that Moses' wife was black. Moses is black. All of them are black. And you're sitting there trying to find who in the Old Testament is black. No, the problem now is who in the Old Testament was not. That's where we are. And some resisted, and that's okay. They'll catch up eventually. But Ammon was at the beginning, and Ammon names the land. He's loving it. It's a beautiful land. He's sitting there with his throne. He's left Yucatan. He's with his father. He's now the king. He puts his throne away from the Yucatan into South America at the top of that mountain, that holy mountain where Jerusalem is eventually built, and he is even higher than that, up into the mountain peak north of that.
Again, you can see he's now king of the world. Not the creator, king of the world. Fleshly king.
David eventually buys that land when he finds out that's where Ammon had his throne, and said, let's build a temple right here where Ammon was, because we are worshiping Ammon after all. And so they built that temple where Ammon had his throne. So your Ark of the Covenant, which is actually a boat, which is actually an ark, just like the Ark of Noah, it is still an ark when it becomes the Ark of the Covenant. It is a ship. And when you look at ancient Egypt, and you look on the walls, you see them carrying this ship as a little house, little box on it, where Ammon likeness sits on the judgment seat. And
when you reach what you call rivers, in the past, it is very, very, very fast to travel the river compared to traveling by foot. It is easier to paddle up river than it is to travel by foot anywhere. So I have no arguments that it would be pictured in a boat showing how it's traveling, having rods on the side when it's being carried and everybody's moaning because it's heavy, and then the rods used as oars when they're in the water.
And the two cherubs, Isis and her sister Nephthys, their wings protect over the covering. There's your Ark of the Covenant that people say they cannot find. It's spinning and staring you right in your eyes. And when David bought that piece of land, he knew exactly what he was buying. He knew exactly where that temple was going to be built, and Solomon built it there. And they thought the temple was built in the city of Jerusalem. No. The African city of Jerusalem, sitting in that mountain, sits upriver from where Amun's throne had been. That's why when you read in the African literature that we call the biblical narratives, it says that when Solomon built this city for Pharaoh's daughter and for his own palace and for the temple and the little temple for the ark, that they gathered all the leaders together and then took the ark up out of the city of David. Up and out of the city of David, because it was going almost 50 miles downriver to the place where Amun's throne had been. These are things...
See, now if you're going 50 miles downriver, are you going to walk a heavy box or are you going to put it in a boat? A canoe. A long canoe.
That we've not been told. I wanted to get what rocks cry out to you so we could begin the discussions and begin seeing where we went wrong, begin seeing the things that were hidden, throw those covers off. And I'm sorry, the black historians with their egos about Egypt being on the Nile, they're stuck on the Nile.
That's a silly argument. Now that this information's released, just like he proved in the last interview, now that the information's released, the white historians, the white archaeologists are now going and removing the black presence. They're removing the bodies. They're removing your ancestors, whether they're Africans or Hebrews, no matter which temples, no matter which palaces they find. And you would have to ask yourself, what are they doing with these bodies? Because these temples, once they're found, they clean them up real quick and they say they're going in there for restoration, and they remove all the images. They already know they failed last time when they cut out all the when they just whitewashed everything. They already know they failed. The evidence is there. So now they just destroy everything that has your black image on it. That's the bigger problem. And then they open it up as a tourist attraction and collect money as all these people, elite first for private tours, come and tread all over your ancient homes. And they know it's yours. And they do it on purpose and carelessly. And then they're going to ask for salvation. They're going to say, save me. And when the time comes, it's really your choice. He put you here to decide if you're going to save the people that oppressed you and held everything from you as they dangled it from a carrot and then took a bite out of the carrot, and then set it back there and dangled it in front of you again, and then took another bite out of it and dangled it in front of you again, and then took your babies and threw them in rivers to lure crocodiles out so they could shoot alligators to make shoes and luggage. Yeah, just so you know, I'm just not just making shit up. I'll just type in something. Look at that. So this is a soap, and it is mocking the situation for removal of discolorations. Stain il go. Stain will go. The stain will go away. This is how you get the stain, right? This is what they say. We're in the promised land and we're the stain of the promised land. And this is how they get the stain to go away. I went and stayed with that Latino woman when I was in Texas, because that's the only person that would help me out. And she damn near wanted to call me shit skin. But the funny thing is we had the same complexion. I had a brown lighter, so she kept calling it the name. Oh boy, the Spanish name for brown, and she kept saying it with such spite, Because Latinos are fucking European, you know. They do their DNA test and it says, hey, they're fucking European. So, you know, that was one person's opinion. That is not all Latinos' opinions, you know. But I do know that there are people that promote this. Latinos are related to us. We've listened to Horace Butler in 2 different broadcasts. Has this motherfucker ever once brought up the Spanish version of the Mexican? No, he said Mexico was an African city. If you constantly say Mexico is an African city, then the fucking people of Mexico were not there before colonization. That's why it's a shame to see them with these fucking tattoos of fucking, we're the Aztecs, man! And all that shit. There's no difference from them saying that from Japhetic people saying we're Europeans that are Americans. I cannot help that the Mexican people are born off of our rape. That is a historic fact. But they push that fucking caste system. Don't they? When we look at the caste system, it matches this caste system. Light stringy hair on top, dark Afro-Asian on bottom.
Now they're scared to get on the Atlantic and come across to the Americans and find the rest of Egypt. I'm sorry, eventually you'll get there. But we're there. And the youth coming up, I want you to know that it's there. So you can now go forward. You won't get stuck in neutral. You can now go forward and find the rest of the African history and find that you were in the Americas 22,000 BC. and building cities and having nation building and doing everything in the Americas from then up until now. So when Amun named that land the beautiful land, the word for beautiful, Mary.
When the king of the land, when he had conquered everything, and he named the land,
M-A-R-E in some spellings, Mary. And the land means Ta, Ta, the land of, beautiful land, Ta, Mary.
So, this tough motherfucker at this point in time had whooped everybody's ass. Now, we are not known if this is before or after Moses. This is before or after Joshua. As he states, David buys the land that belonged to Ammon. So this is supposedly before Moses and Joshua.
And to Mary is still applied to the land. And just as the ancient Africans said, there is a northland and a southland. Now we have north to Mary and south to Mary. We simply move the ta to the end of the word and call it America. South America, North America, you're living in the land that was named by Egypt. Here are your Moors, who are named from Mary, from the M and the R. You get your Moor. So even in the ancient African literature called biblical, you find Amorites, Amorites, who lived on the north side of the Amazon River and went all the way up through Venezuela, what is now called Colombia, Guyana, all of that. Now we're going to get you a little deeper, something I haven't told before. Because that land is also called Syria. Here.
All right. Now, I think we're going to stop there. I think we've had enough for today. All right. Somebody suggested. Let's see. I haven't looked at this yet. There we go. Yeah. Now, since we've had so much focus on Powell, and we started to look at Lake Powell, someone suggested, why not look at Powell's right-hand man, Cyrus Thomas? Alright, so this link that they dropped is called the Smithsonian Cover-Ups. Look, this is what the truth is all about. Okay? Now look, when you read the Bible, you weren't so intertwined with white society. Excuse me. This was before the days of the internet, when you were graced with the Bible. And for the most part, you heard the New Testament. Now, those of you that grew up in the gospel and the Baptist, more so the Baptist, you've been more educated in the Old Testament. So you've heard the African side, and with the integration of white society with the internet, now you've heard the European side. As with everything, there's two sides. Now, with this Horace Butler stuff, we've started to get to the African side of the truth. They're all records. There are records. The more people that stop fucking off in their life and start learning how to read Egyptian and and Coptic Egyptian and Hebrew, Coptic is the link between the two, the more that we understand those three ancient languages, the better off we're going to be. There are temples that these people have not discovered yet. When we get to these temples, are we going to read the walls? Or are we going to have to call them to read the walls and tell us what they feel we should know about the translation? I mean, we're to the point, everyone is well aware who's going to care. The rest don't fucking matter. I love my dad. He don't matter. I love my dad's family. If they're not hip to this in this fucking time frame, this is the first time in the world blacks are ahead of the curve. You're in the beginnings of this. The mages, the black masters that have discovered this. This isn't the only man that's telling you this. Clyde Winters tells you the same thing. These men are masters of their mind. They know who they are. The masters of information have already let it out. I'm just teaching you the information. There's many people that have been trying to teach you. All the masters of the information look smooth as fuck, and all the teachers look like mums. I didn't have the fucking money to protect myself or my family. But these masters were successful enough in life that when they stumbled upon this information, they were able to protect themselves and get the information out and survive the threats. I'm a bum. I couldn't have did that shit. First time somebody threatens me, I'm like, bring it on, bitch, and then bang, bang, bang. And then I'm like, oh, I didn't know you were going to play that way. How many chances do I get? I'm from the age of video games. I'm from the age of make-believe. These masters that release the information, they're from the age of war. They grew up seeing war. They saw Atari and they said, fuck that shit. They lived at a time of trying to get away from Vietnam. You know, don't draft me, I'm 16. I don't like this guy. But he's a master under the predicament that he's placed in to be able to release this information and still be alive. I talked to this. There was a Facebook page. He written up on Facebook that these Africans this, these Africans that, and the acts that he was talking about, they were Hebrew acts. I was angry. I said, "Hey, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you calling every Hebrew exploit an African? Just because they're born on Africa's soil doesn't mean they're Hamite blood." This dude wrote back to me, "Get off my dick." If I was on your dick, I'd be like, "This guy's amazing." That's not what's going on. So we're not gonna see eye to eye. We're not gonna see eye to eye. So let him be the master of his own fucking palace. And it's time to move on. Although I am a servant, I am not looking for some master to worship. I have. There's a creator. There's nothing better to be with. If I'm in need, he's my shield. For everything. So I encourage you. as this information grows on you, do not reject the origin of the source. Even this man authenticates the Bible when he says these Hebrew Africans marched around and destroyed everybody's fucking city. Stay calm, everybody. Jesus will be defeated by the Creator.